Hi guys, the Middlemaniac back again. And last video I shared with you 5 albums I hate, but everyone else loves. Now in this video, I'm gonna be sharing with you 5 albums I love, but everyone else hates. So, yep, let's get right into it. First off is Fear of the Dark by Iron Maiden. Yeah, this album, believe it or not, gets a lot of hate. A lot of people who hate 90s heavy metal or 90s metal in general really hate this album. There's a lot of those people. And to be fair, metal and especially heavy metal actually wasn't doing so well in the 90s. For the most part, I know there were a few albums here and there that were pretty good. But for the most part, heavy metal. I mean, death metal was doing great. Thrash metal was okay. But heavy metal was suffering very much in the 90s, and because of that, people have especially people who were around at that point in time, those kind of people have a very uh, uh, burning hatred for any metal album, most metal albums that came out in the 90s, and yeah, it's just I don't understand that. Yeah, I mean, I kind of understand that in the fact that yeah, I mean, most albums at that time, especially heavy metal albums, weren't that good. But give credit where credit's due, people. Albums like this are great. Like, I mean, yeah, I mean, Iron Maiden did not start off good in the 90s with No Prayer for the Dying. That was pretty terrible. But this album is, well, it's not great. It is pretty good. Like, it's not very good, but pretty good. I mean, Be Quick or Be Dead is an awesome song. From Here to Eternity. Fear is the Key. Judas Be My Guide, and Fear of the Dark. I mean, yeah, people can bash this album, but even those who bash this album will admit that Fear of the Dark is a legendary Iron Maiden song, and has been played live ever since this album. And yeah, I mean, this album's just, I love it. I mean, I don't think it's a great album, I just think it's a good album. But it's something that I do love to put on. I do love to put on, especially like again in the evening time, especially like when it starts, like when like not when it's dark out, but like when it's like between like sunset and complete darkness. Around that time, especially later in the fall, I love to put this on at that point in time of the day and just listen to it. Especially the song "Fear of the Dark." It's just a great album. It has a great atmosphere, and I love it. Next up is Spiritual Healing by Death. This is, I mean, okay, here's the thing. A lot of people say that this is the worst Death album or one of the worst, but I think it's actually pretty good. Like, here's the thing. As an album in the Death discography, it's just pretty good. But looking at it as a standalone album, looking at it without comparing it to any of the other Death albums, it is a really good album. Like, I think the reason why people say this is either okay or bad album is because they're comparing it to, like, other albums in the Death discography, like, The Sound of Perseverance, Scream Bloody Gore, Leprosy, Symbolic, all of those albums. Yes, those are way better albums than this. But if you don't compare this to any of the Death albums and just have it as is, it's a great album. I mean, the only songs on here that I don't think are good are Living Monstrosity, uh, um, and Genetic Reconstruction, and Altering the Future. But everything else is really good. I'd say the 3 best songs on the album are Within the Mind, Spiritual Healing, and Killing Spree. But yeah, this is just a good album. I love it. Next up is Anthrax's debut album, Fistful of Metal. A lot of people like shrug off Neil Turbin just because he was only on one album, but honestly, I really, really like his vocals. Yeah, I haven't heard any of the other Anthrax albums yet, but Neil Turbin's vocals just blew my mind. Like, I love his vocals, especially on songs like Death Rider, Howling Furies, and Metal Thrashing Mad. Like, his vocals on those particular songs are just amazing, and it's just a shame that he apparently yeah, I guess he wasn't on any of the other albums, like, which is a shame because I would have liked to hear him on more albums, but I'm still looking forward to listening to the other albums, even though Neil Turbin isn't on any other of the other ones. But yeah, this is just a great album, and I love the artwork, and everything's just good about this album. But apparently people don't like it, just because it's Neil Turbin and not the other guy. I don't know. I really like it. But yeah. Alright, next up is the final countdown by Europe. Yeah, I will admit this hasn't aged very well over time, and as of listening to it not too long ago today, I actually bought this. I never actually owned a physical copy before. I just bought this today along with the Guns N' Roses album. But I have heard it before, like a lot in the past, and re-listening to it, it has not aged well, but it's just so sentimental to me, and the title track in particular. Because here's the thing: the title track was the very first time I ever heard a metal song ever. Like, okay, so this album and the title track are very sentimental to me because so back in around I want to say early middle school, or maybe even late elementary, either late elementary or early middle school. Um, it's between that. Anyway, around that time, um, when I started up one of those schools, during gym class, the first time I had gym class in whatever middle school it was, I don't remember the name of it. Um, the gym teacher had this, I guess, homemade compilation CD of of a couple different classic songs from the 80s. There was Beat It by Michael Jackson, Eye of the Tiger by, I can't remember whatever band that was, We Will Rock You, again, I can't remember what band that was. And then there was the title track, The Final Countdown by Europe. And I remember, like, this is the first song that came on that homemade compilation CD that I had. And I loved every minute of it, especially the song, like the title track. And I loved it. And at the time, and for years and years, people, like, I always thought it was classic rock. I didn't know it was glam metal, because everyone that I talked to at the time, even the adults, said, oh yeah, it's classic rock. But then years later, I found out it's glam metal, so they were completely wrong. But yeah, I mean, I just have a very nostalgic spot for this song, the title track. And then, not too long after I heard the song, one of my friends at the time, he had a mobile CD player that I used to have one too, but I don't know where it went. I lost it years ago. But he had a mobile CD player, and he bought a copy of the album on CD from somewhere. I don't know where, but he bought it, and we listened to it together one day, and we both fell in love with the album. It's weird that I only got a physical copy of it now, but it's such a, even though it hasn't aged well, it's aged pretty terribly. It just has a great nostalgia factor to it for me because it was the very first metal album I ever heard, and it brings back so many good memories. Even though at the time, ugh, I gotta turn off the ringer on my phone when I do these videos when I have my phone in my room. But anyway, it just brings back so many memories of the time, even though at the time, life wasn't, at that time life wasn't that good for me, from time to time. But it just brings back so many of the good memories from that time period of my life. Like, always listening to this, and then listening to the other songs I just mentioned on that one compilation CD, in gym class. And it just was something that I always hold on to, like, that memory. I mean, this album, even though it's not good, it still has a very nostalgic feel to it for me. But, yeah, this is another one that I really love, even though it's not that good. Lastly is Jugulator by Judas Priest. Now, here is a good album through and through, other than maybe 2 songs and like 1 or 2 stupid intros. But even with that, this is an absolutely underrated masterpiece. Like, again, a lot of people hate this just because it's not Rob Halford. Like, again, like, a lot of people hate Fistful of Fury because it's not the other guy, I don't remember his name, and it's the other singer, Neil Turbin. Now, people hate this album because it's Ripper Owens and not Rob Halford. And, which is a shame, because Ripper Owens is amazing. Like, yeah, I mean, even now, when he's not in Priest anymore, but still he sings so amazingly. Like, his voice has actually aged better than Rob Halford's, in my opinion. Like, Rob Halford is a few years older than him, but still, like, Rob Halford just, even though he did his best, like, he did really good on Firepower, the most recent Judas Priest album. You could tell he was really straining it a lot of the time. Whereas Ripper Owens, you listen to, like, live performance of his, like, in recent years, like, he still sounds amazing. I'm not trying to bash on Rob Halford for his voice aging, but I'm just trying to point out that his voice hasn't aged well as Ripper Owens, and even, like, comparing Rob Halford to Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden, Bruce Dickinson's voice still sounds amazing, whereas Rob's, even though it still sounds amazing from time to time, you could clearly hear he's really losing his voice. But anyway, with that weird rant out of the way, this is just an amazing album. Like, yeah, the artwork sucks because it's stupidly zoomed in, and but it's just it's not perfect. It's near perfect though, but I just really, really, really wish Rob Halford will acknowledge the Ripper Owens stuff and have all the Ripper Owens albums re-released at some point, remastered and re-released, because, or maybe just re-released, maybe like, I would say 98 Live Meltdown remastered and re-released, but have this just remastered and have not remastered, have this just re-released and then have the other 2 just re-released as well. But it's just a great album. Like, again, this is the most brutal, the most dark, the most sinister Judas Priest has ever been. Yeah, they had a little bit of that on Painkiller, but still, this is just amazing. And again, with me, who I like a lot of the darker, more brutal side of metal. Like, that's the reason I like death metal, a lot of the extreme metal and death metal, some black metal here and there, black and thrash and stuff like that. That's one of the main reasons I love this album. It's just so brutal, and it's just amazing. Extremely underrated too. I love it. So yeah, that's it. So that was 5 albums I love, but everyone else hates. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.